Good evening, Yankee fans. How's everybody doing here? Joe NY Yankee Mania, and a special show with a special guest that we're going to bring up in just about a minute. But let's also say hello to Nitin. Nitin, thanks for coming on. How you doing? How's everything with you?
First of all, thank you for letting me come to this interview. Obviously, we heard a lot about Howie Karpin throughout his career, one of the best to do it in the sports business. Looking forward to speaking with him. And hey, guys, unfortunately, I want to bring up one thing before you bring him up. Our Job in the Mouth show, we're supposed to have our live show at Virgil's in New York on Monday, but we're going to push it till next year at Carmine's in New York. So we'll keep you guys posted on the new date. And and Howie, we would love to have Howie come to the live show with Job in the Mouth. So we'll keep everyone posted on the new date. So I just want to bring that up.
Oh, no problem. And that'll be great. Beginning of the year, people are going to want, to want to do something and not rushing with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of that. I just want to tell everybody, remember, press the like button, subscribe to our channel. Again, thank you for that great, what you did last night was unbelievable with the salute to the troops. I can't thank you guys enough. We had a record amount of people watching and participating, and thank you again. I can't thank you guys enough, and all the guests that came on. But right now, we are going to bring up one of my favorites, one of my heroes growing up. Actually mentored me in many, many ways, and he is none other than Howie Karpin. He is a master of everything. So you know what, Howie? First of all, welcome to NY Yankee Mania, and tell everybody what you do.
Well, if you want a resume of my career, it's 46 years in sports journalism. I started at Sports Phone way back when, moved on to WCBS for a while. I'm currently at Sirius XM for the past 17 years as an update anchor, a great cast of characters over at that place. And I guess a lot of people know me as a Major League Baseball accredited official scorer. Just completed my 27th year. I've done over 1,500 games. I've seen a lot of baseball over this time period. And I've been very fortunate because I grew up a big sports fan. Sports have been a big part of my life. I met Joe Mingoya thanks to being, involved with the Yankees and stuff. And we go back to WMCA days in the 80s with the late Eddie Lucas. And I've met a number of great people throughout the years, and it's a pleasure to be with you two guys.
Oh, thank you.
Howie, do you remember our the day with Art Rush Jr. and Willie Randolph and all of that in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Willie's a buddy. Art Rush got me started in the business, really, because I was an intern at WMCA in 1980, and I worked on the Art Rush Jr. show as a producer. And Art got me credentials. My first professional credentials were thanks to Art Rush, who actually attended my wedding in August 1980. He was invited, and he came, which was a thrill. And, I owe a lot of this to Art. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. He should rest in peace. But he was a big factor in me getting started because I really didn't have any connections when I first got in the business. I was a nomad, so to speak, and he got me started, and things snowballed from there, luckily in the right direction.
Howie, tell us a little bit about, I was explaining to everybody about, because we have a lot of young people that listen to the show. Talk about Sports Phone. What was Sports Phone? It's basically what the internet is today. Tell us a little bit about it and, and how that actually helped your career.
Well, again, I didn't really know anybody when I first started to get credentialed to go to ball games. Art Rush took me along, as a mentor. He got me in, in the Yankee clubhouse and on the field at Yankee Stadium. It was a thrill to be in the dugout and things like that. And I happened through one time I was there, I happened to meet the guy who was running Sports Phone at the time, and they said they were expanding. It was a matter of timing, really. They were expanding. They were looking for people. I had a radio background. He hired me, and I spent 12 years at Sports Phone doing a number of different things. Got immersed in the business through that, and there's a book out that we wrote. A co-author of mine, Scott Orgera, and I wrote a book about Sports Phone called 9761313, How Sports Phone Molded and Shaped Careers. Because the list of alumni there, as you know, Joe, is incredible. The talent that came through there. I mean, I could just, I could throw more names than a mailman at you. I mean, it was unbelievable. Gary Cohn, the late Al Troutwig, Steve Torrey.
Wow.
That's just, tip of the iceberg. The
King Wally
that came through there. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. So I got started there, and then I started to freelance as a reporter, stringing games and making a little money on the side, and ended up at WCBS for a while, thanks to the late Ed Ingalls, who hired me to be an update anchor there for a while. And, one thing led to another, and I was doing a lot of baseball throughout the years. I also was a statistician for the NBA for a couple of years, where I worked for the visiting teams, got to sit courtside with the TV crews, which was a thrill. So I worked in that regard, and, did a lot of hockey, did football, you name it, I've done it. So I've been very lucky throughout the years, and the last 17, 18 with Sirius, and obviously the last 27 as a accredited official scorer, and still going strong at 46 years in the business. Thankfully, I've been very lucky that it's lasted this long. A lot of people get in the business, they drop out, one reason or another, financial reasons. My wife was in media. She was a newscaster at WCBS for a long time. So we kind of, shared the same fate. We knew how tough the business was. It's tough. It's not easy, to even to last this long. Is, I'm pretty proud of it. And my wife too, and she just retired recently. But, we shared the same ups and downs, and, got myself to this point in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And they also did a great story about Howie on ESPN. I don't know. I guess it was about a year ago, close to a year.
Yeah, it was last summer. Last summer.
It was a great story. And Nitin, when I tell you, I mean, this guy is just amazing, and he knows his stuff, and the way he reports, the way they just go to him. He's like a magnet. And I've been so proud to be called a friend, because I'm telling you, this guy has just been amazing. Him, his family, it's just his background has just been amazing. Nitin, I know you have a few questions, I'm sure.
I mean, by listening to what he's saying is unbelievable. 46 years is unbelievable to be in this business. And like for me, like my team and I, we help out Joe with his show. So I don't know if you saw his recent episodes. All the guests has been through us that we bring all the guests for Joe's show. But I want to ask you. Obviously, media has changed a lot when you started. But I want to ask you, what's it been like for you to over 46 years to build relationships with the athletes and reporters and journalists yourself, and like we're building those relationships right now too. But let's talk about what was it like back in the day, building those relationships and containing those relationships throughout now.
Oh, by the way, I checked out your website. Very impressive.
Oh, thank you.
The relationships are what makes the job really special. In the beginning, I was just a radio stringer who held a tape recorder, and a lot of, the athletes, they, you really can't get close to them in that regard. The beat reporters had the advantage because they're around all the time, even in the off hours. Radio guys were just there at the games. And unfortunately, a lot of my brethren that worked those jobs were not serious about what they did. Yeah. All they cared about was getting a sound bite and then feeding it to a station to get paid a few dollars here and there. I was a little more serious about the job than most at that time. And I think some of the old guard, that used to cover games, like Dick Young and a guy named Jack Lang and a bunch of those, older gentlemen, Dick Young actually recognized that I was serious about the job because of the questions I was asking. Most of the radio guys would just ask generic questions to satisfy their need for a soundbite. I would ask more serious questions that that played to what the beat reporters were looking for. So I started to build a reputation in that regard. But things really took off relationship-wise when I got the official scorer job in baseball anyway, because, it's almost like they have to know who you are kind of, because a lot of their fates rest on some of your calls that you're making, contract-wise, the clauses in their contract, if they have certain, things they need to meet, where a scorer can affect, what their contract dictates and things like that. But that, that's been the best part, the relationships. I treasure all of them. I met Joe through the sports business. I wouldn't have met him maybe if I wasn't in sports. Art Rust, who was a big part of my life. Friendly with Willie Randolph.
Mm-hmm.
I could throw out a lot of names that know me, but it's been a real pleasure, the relationships over the years. It was tough in the beginning. I had to really establish my credibility.
Yeah.
Luckily, that came to pass. And then when I got the official scorer job, it's funny, a lot of the old timers, would really not acknowledge you. They really, it's funny. I have a good relationship now with Keith Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
He was a player. We weren't that close. But it's funny how things change, since now he's in the broadcast business. And, those guys talk about me all the time on the broadcast. Michael Kay I had known in college already because I used to go on WFUV's one-on-one marathon, trivia marathon that ran 24 hours.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember that. But, I would come in about 1, 2 in the morning and hang out till about 5 in the morning.
Wow.
I was always an invited guest. Mike Breen, I knew from college. I made relationships with those guys before their careers took off. And then, the sports phone relationships too. Everything seemed to come together later on for me. And, I treasure all those relationships. I really do. I mean, John Flaherty is a friend. I felt bad that, let him go last week. I was able to, text him that I felt bad that he lost the job. Buck Showalter's a friend. I can text him every now and then. You get their phone. I'm not a guy who really went around asking for phone numbers, but I have a lot of numbers and I keep in touch with a lot of the people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Nice. Forget it. We could talk to Howie from now till all the Yankee championships, to be honest with you. A couple of questions the fans are getting itchy to ask you a few questions, Howie. But, leading into the current Yankees, this is from Eric. Eric is always a good responder to our program. Thank you, Eric. Do you feel Cashman and Boone can lead the Yankees finally to a ring?
They can if they alter their philosophy a little bit. They're a little stubborn in how they approach the game. It took them, if you remember, about 10 years ago, 2017, when they had the baby bombers, when Aaron Judge burst on the scene, and then they made the trade for Giancarlo Stanton. They were too right-handed for a long time, and they never really came to grips with the fact that they needed more left-handed bats until a couple of years ago. They seem to, in recent times, ignore the speed factor and the stolen base. When other teams are taking advantage of these new rules with the big bases, it's funny. During the season, the past few seasons with this, runner on second rule, which I don't agree with totally. No. To me, you should play 3 real extra innings, then go to the runner on second, because I admit a game can get draggy when it gets in those later innings and nothing's happening. But, the Yankees never really took advantage of it. They've had poor records in extra innings that have cost them a lot of games, with that maybe end up, hanging over your head at the end of the year. They need to change their philosophy. They almost have to go back to basic baseball and not worry about the home runs so much. The home runs will come. You don't see a whole lot of rallies from them where they used to, during the dynasty years, they used to bat 9 and 10 in an inning. I remember they kept a stat on it at the press box. They always told you, well, this is like the 12th time that they batted around. How many times have they batted around in the last few years? Certainly not 12. And then getting the runner in from third with less than 2 out, that used to be automatic. Now it's like a struggle. If they change their philosophy a little bit, I think this current regime can lead them to a ring. Look, they got into the World Series last year, although a lot of people thought, oh, they had an easy ride. It's not easy in the postseason, no matter who you play. Now they weren't fit to beat the Dodgers last year. The Dodgers were the better team, let's face it. But the Yankees did make mistakes, and they had chances to steal games. To me, in that World Series, if they had gotten through Game 5, Judge was starting to hit at that point. It would have been very interesting if they got the series back to L.A. Obviously, that didn't happen. They said they corrected their fundamental mistakes, but they were still making them last year. Their base running has been atrocious at times. It's cost them innings. It's cost them games. They have to clean that up. You can't make these kind of mistakes in the major leagues. The good teams are just going to take advantage. If they clean up the mistakes and they change their philosophy a little bit, yeah, I think they have a chance to get a ring with this current regime.
What do you think? What would you do now? Would you re-sign Bellinger? Do you think the qualifying offer for Grissom was smart? What are your thoughts on those two things?
Well, Bellinger, I think, needs to be re-signed. Last year they had the void when Soto left, but they were able to at least fill the gap by bringing in Bellinger. Bellinger is a more versatile player than Soto, maybe not as good a hitter, so to speak, but he gave them some presence in the lineup that they would have been lacking when they didn't have Soto. I'm not a big Trent Grisham guy. I think that, he played over his head. I think back to Jacoby Ellsbury. They signed him off that real big year when he had 50 homers.
Yep.
But if you look at the rest of his career, like on Baseball Reference, his numbers never came close to that either before or after, and that turned into a disaster. Now, I think they're gambling that he's going to bypass the qualifying offer so they get a draft pick. If he does come back, it looks like he's going to be the regular center fielder, especially if Bellinger doesn't return. I think that would be a big loss in that regard. And, here's another thing, what happened with Grisham. You had to play him last year because he was producing, but he took at-bats away from Jason Dominguez and development at-bats. There's a false narrative on the kid that he's such a terrible outfielder and he's a bust as a prospect. He's 22 years old. Mm-hmm. He showed you flashes that he can be that kind of player they think he can be. He got some big hits during the season. Remember that walk-off against Texas? How many times did he drive in a run? Then he sat for 6 weeks. They bring him up in the playoffs, and he hits a line drive double to right center field. To me, they stunted his growth a little because you had to play Grisham. It's almost like he got in the way. I hope they don't give up on this kid because I see a lot of potential there. Yeah, he struggled as a right-handed hitter. So let him get right-handed at-bats down in the winter leagues this year. Let him work on things. They seem to their player development at the major league level seems to be lacking at times, although they're being complemented by outside organizations. So, they're at a crossroads right now. They have to filter in young talent. We don't know what Spencer Jones is. The people say he strikes out a lot. Is he going to come up to the major leagues and be an all or nothing guy where he homers or strikes out? They have to, lessen the strikeouts in that lineup. There are still too many easy outs for opposing pitchers. They need to, lessen the strikeouts, get more of these rallies where they don't rely on the home run. They did that somewhat in the first half, but then they got away from that at the end.
I agree. Nitin, you have a question?
Yeah, I want to piggy off on that, and well said. Well, great points from Howie. But Howie, I want to ask you: is there a reason why the Yankees, like, if you look at these other teams, like for example the Red Sox, they call up the prospects right away and they sign them to extensions. And if you see the Tampa Bay Rays, they know how to develop players, and the Dodgers even too. Do you know the reason why the Yankees take time for their prospects to come up like that? Because they mess up. I'll give you a great example. Jabba Chamberlain. They mess up Jabba's career, and but by switching him to a starter and a bullpen guy. But what is the reasoning behind the Yankees? And I've been hearing that they have a checkbox or something that needs to be checked in order for them to get called up. I don't know.
I think they're a little too conservative. New York is a different animal from any other, market. Let's face, you got to be fair in that regard. But again, with Dominguez, what I would have done last year is tell the kid, you're our guy. you're our guy. Show some faith in these guys. They don't show faith in their own guys. Here's a good example. Remember, they were leading Dominguez off for a while. They let him bat first.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of good games, and then they would move him down to 6. So the kid may think, oh, that's a demotion. You know, they're not honest with their players.
Yeah.
I think the communication is lacking, you know, from the front office, and the manager tries to communicate, but the messages are not getting through, you know, and you got to have faith in these guys. Now, here's another factor with their lineup last year. The rotating leadoff man. Paul Goldschmidt is not a leadoff batter. I'm sorry. I don't care. Even Grisham. Grisham's not that great at leadoff. You know, it's a funny thing. I think of the old Abbott and Costello routine, you know, when I quote, who's up first? You never knew who was – they didn't know their roles. Who's batting first? Judge bats second, bats third. Last year, Judge batted third behind Soto. He had a great year. Now he had a great year this year, and they moved him second and third. To me, you got to bat him third because you got to give him in the first inning. These analytical teams seem to diss the first inning. They play for the later innings with the analytics. In the first inning, I want my best hitter to get 2 chances to come up with a man on base. You know, either the first hitter or the second, or maybe he comes up with 2 guys. They didn't put up enough crooked numbered innings last year. Yeah, they hit a lot of home runs, but how many of those were solo shots where they end up losing by a run or 2 because they didn't put up a crooked number? They need to get that leadoff spot solidified, you know, get an everyday lineup. Look at the Mets.
Yeah.
They had it when last year when they were successful, it was Lindor, it was, you know, whoever bet was Nimmo, it was Alonso, and those were the 4 guys. Their 4 was solid every game. This Yankee lineup changes every day. You can't do that at this level. You got to be a little more consistent with who you're putting out there on a daily basis.
I was screaming about that all year, Howie, like crazy. You know, and it you know, you just get to the point where, you know, you beat yourself over the head. I mean, really, enough's enough. They've got to be tough. Hal's got to really, really look. I mean, look, today they got rid of their international guy for, you know, nobody's producing. All the lower level guys are doing well, but the guys they're paying $5 million for, nobody's doing anything. So it's about time he's proactive. What do you think of Aaron Boone? Do you throw him out of here, or do you tell our fans how you really feel about Aaron Boone? Please, Howard.
I think it's time. It may be time for a new voice in the dugout. He's been there a long time. Look, you know, on a personal level, he's a good baseball guy. I think he has the handcuffs on. I really do. I don't think he's allowed to do a whole lot of things that he would like to do. You know, that's the way it is now. The game is being run. This is a guy who's been around baseball his whole life. And some of the moves he's made, you know, you'd think he was a novice, you know. Again, with the lineup and things like that. To me, Jazz Chisholm should have led off last year. He's a power threat who can steal a base, you know. You gotta have a guy who gets on base, who scares the pitcher into making mistakes. They don't have that guy. Now, Boone, you know, look, fans are down on him. I can understand that. He has a winning record. You can't deny that. They do win a lot of games. They just come up short at the end because, you know, maybe they're not built for October. They're built more for the regular season. You know, ever since Giancarlo Stanton came aboard, I have all the respect in the world for Stanton, but he's been like an albatross on this roster ever since he came aboard. I think they made a big mistake not, you know, getting him and not signing Bryce Harper. When they cleared the roster for Harper in 2016, A-Rod retired. You know, they got rid of guys they didn't need. They got rid of some dead wood. They were, you know, grooming it to sign Harper. Harper would have been a great fit here, and they went for Stanton because they got offered an MVP, you know, for a cheap deal. And, you know, Stanton, yeah, he's had some nice postseasons, but on the whole, he's been out of the lineup so much. You can't count on him to be in the lineup. Every year he gets hurt. So, you know, look, they couldn't have anticipated that, but I think they made a big mistake when they passed on Harper and they brought in Giancarlo Stanton. So ever since then, they got rid of Girardi that year. things changed at that juncture when things seem to be looking up for a bright future. And that future really hasn't come to pass. They've had to scramble to make different moves here and there. Their infield's a little bit in flux right now. They need a first baseman. They don't know what they're doing in center field. I like their catching situation, although I'd like to bring in a right-handed catcher. I think Austin Wells just had an off year, a second year. I expect him to be a lot better. I hope they don't give up on him. They give up on guys too quick sometimes. That's part of their problem too. And they don't show faith in what they have. But, I don't know. Boone's here. He's going to be here next year. They got to live with it right now. Maybe they need a new voice in the dugout. I can see that. But right now, that's not changing.
Do you want Mattingly?
Do I want Mattingly? I don't know. I'd like to see him come along as a bench coach right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him come back to the team. Sure. He's a valuable guy. Look what he did. Look what he did for Vlad Guerrero in the field.
Yep.
He didn't get better on his own. Mattingly was working with him. What better guy to work with a first baseman? And now you're thinking of playing Ben Rice at first base on an everyday basis. That could be a shaky proposition defensively. So yeah, I'd like to see Mattingly back in the fold.
Two catchers that are available: JT and Danny Jansen's.
What about him? They're not going for Real Muto.
No, I always
Wells is their starter.
Yeah.
Wells is their starter. Danny Jansen would be a nice pickup as a backup. He used to kill them anyway.
Yeah.
Danny Jansen always hit the Yankees.
Yep. Yankee.
But yeah, he's a right-handed catcher. Yeah, Danny Jansen may be a nice, low-level pickup. They're not going for JT Realmuto. Mm-hmm. He's a starter. You got a starter. Wells is your guy. Wells will hit. His entire minor league career showed he's a hitter. He had an off year this year, maybe got carried away with swinging for the fences. I think he was injured in the middle of the year where, he had trouble going to the opposite field. He's still a dangerous left-hand bat in Yankee Stadium. And I think he got a little too caught up with his defense, which, is better than they thought when he was in the minors. He's a pretty good defensive player, certainly, rates with the framing and everything and blocking balls and things like that. So, Wells is their guy. I don't see them going after Realmuto. Danny Jansen's a possibility.
Yeah, I agree. I kept saying on the show that Danny Jansen would be a perfect backup, and plus they need a right-handed catcher. So
right,
and he's perfect, and he brings value to the team, and you can get him on a short-term deal. And but I've been preaching about Danny Jansen. He obviously Yankee killer, great guy to have on the team. But I have a question for you, Howie. I want to get back to your career, and obviously you should be in the Hall of Fame after you're all done with all this.
I don't know about that.
But I want to ask you about your books. You have 14 books out there, but you got one with the sports phone. But how did you balance, like, obviously when you were writing your books and then doing your work as a sports journalist, and just talk about what's it like to have all these books out there, sharing your stories and having the fans get your books and read about your story.
Well, I have a page on Amazon. They can see all the books there. It's a hobby of mine. I enjoy writing. I always did. I wanted to be a sports writer, but that didn't pan out. Mm-hmm. But you fit it in. It's easy now with the computer. You can do your own research. Everything's at your fingertips. I'm pretty quick on the keyboard. Luckily, I got that from my mom, my late mom. She was a very fast typist. Like I said, it's a hobby. I've done a number of books with a co-author too. My Mark Rosenman was one of my co-authors, and he pushed me. I pushed him. He pushed me, and we did a lot of books together. We did, I think, 7 or 8. I got approached by a publisher a couple of times where I did books for them. So, I haven't done one in a while. People are bugging me. You should write something about your own career, my memoir. Right now, I don't want to do that while I'm still working for MLB, but that's certainly a possibility in the future. I keep a file of certain stories that I've accumulated over the years. I have a lot of those. I mean, plenty of stories from the scoring job and just radio in general and things like that. So, I enjoy it. I enjoy writing. It's just right now it's just a hobby. You don't really make a whole lot of money off it. You can't expect to, especially nowadays where, people go to computers to read things and don't really put a book in their hands or don't follow news. I still read newspapers. I'm an old timer and I can't give up that habit. I buy newspapers every day and still read them like that. I can't look at a screen all day, which I do anyway in a lot of jobs. So yeah, it's rewarding. I get my name out there, and if I Google my name, you see about 10,000 selections and things like that. And it's been a real rewarding experience to be an author and a co-author.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, I'm telling you, it must be wild, getting all the stories, putting everything together. I mean, it takes a certain person. I mean, not everybody can do it, Howie, but if anybody can do it, I know you can 100%. So kudos to you and your career. And Nitin's right. You do belong in a Hall of Fame. You really do. For everything that you've done, you have to be acknowledged. And believe me, we're going to help. We'll do what it takes. We really would. I'd really love to see that. I'd be the first one to say this man deserves it, because you spent a lifelong history in sports, and not only baseball. I mean, we haven't even covered the New York Rangers or anybody like that. And I've seen you in Madison Square Garden endless amount of times. And again, if you guys want, are okay with it, we could talk a little hockey, Howie, if you don't mind, because people have asked me what is going on with the Rangers, at least here in New York, and do you see them developing, or do you think this is going to be another flop year?
Well, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Right now, they're in limbo. I think some of their core players have gotten older. They miss Chris Kreider. His scoring ability in front of the net. I think that's what was happening at home. They weren't getting guys in front of the net, screening the goalie, and too much of the fancy stuff, too much finesse instead of power hockey. They brought up the kid Perot the other day, played him on the top line the other night, and they got a big win over Nashville at home. They play a different brand on the road. I think sometimes they try and satisfy the home fans with these fancy drop passes, and the power play kills me the way it starts off, where Fox skates it up the ice and then he throws a drop pass to somebody else. I hate that. I mean, that drives me crazy. To me, it allows the defense to set up at the blue line, and basically, inhibit the Rangers from really skating in the zone. So they have to dump it in anyway. So you may as well dump and chase, because they're playing so far up at the blue line defensively. They lack a little bit of physicality. I'll say that. They got the great goaltending. They have two great goaltenders. Their defense is a little better than it was last year, but their scoring is down, especially on the power play. They still don't get enough shots on the net on the power play. That's got to change. They're not a terrible team. I mean, they could make the playoffs, but right now they're in limbo at home. They've really been awful. They're blowing a lot of points at home. Getting shut out 5 times is incredible. But, I think things can get better. I really do. I mean, JT Miller's the captain. I don't know if he's, maybe Vincent Trocheck should have maybe been the captain, but that's another story. They got him back. He's certainly a big difference in their lineup. Getting him back, they missed him terribly. We'll see where it goes. Lafreniere hasn't developed into, from what a number 1 pick should be. It's amazing their luck over the years. They get a number 1 and a number 2 in successive years. One of them's not even on the team anymore, and the other one hasn't developed to, the potential of a number 1. So that's a big setback, those 2 draft picks that haven't developed. And I think that's cost them in these recent years. They had their window, and that window's now closed, and they got to kind of start over.
Howie, I know we both were at the wonderful year of '94. Take us back a little bit, though. Your remembrance of it. What was it like every day going to Madison Square Garden for the playoffs, and just seeing the jubilation or the disappointment? What was it like? And, tell us a little bit what you remember about that time.
Well, that was one of the most awesome experiences of my career. I got to go to, I went to all the home games in the first, in every round. I went to every game in the Devils series.
Mhm.
I was able to get, credentialed for the whole series. So every game you were on the edge of your seat from the drop of the puck to the, to when the clock hit zero, whenever that was, because, they went to 3 times. They went to double overtime that series. I think game 1, game 3, and game 7, from what I remember, went to double OT. It's funny, they lost game 1 in against the Devils, and I think they dropped game 1. Did they drop game? Yeah, they dropped game 1 against Vancouver.
Yes, they did.
But they had the team that could rally. Now, one of the great experiences of my life was game 6 against the Devils because of the whole Messier guarantee, and after the game, after he completed the hat trick, I was in with the crowd of media guys. And while I was standing there, I actually thought to myself, wow, I'm standing here with Mark Messier after one of the great, games in the history of the New York Rangers. How lucky I was to be there. And then the game 7, of course, when they tied it up with 7 seconds left, I was sitting. I wasn't in the regular press box that night. I was on the other side where they used to have, remember the old broadcast booths used to be on the other side of the ice? Well, I was on that side of the ice for that game 7, and there were people crying in front of me when that, the Devils tied it up, because you knew the history of the Rangers. If they got to overtime, almost 99% of the time, you'd think they'd lose, which we all did. We all thought, oh boy, they're going to blow their chance. And then Mateau scored that goal, and the place went nuts. And I remember, trying to hustle downstairs as quick as possible while the crowd was cheering, because I had to work the post-game room. And I was actually one of the first reporters to get to Mateau right after that game, because he was sitting at his stall in the Ranger locker room before they brought him to the podium. And a bunch of us got some quotes from him right after the game, maybe like 10 minutes after it ended, which was a thrill. And then, of course, game 7 against Vancouver, when they got to lift the Stanley Cup, I had chills throughout my body. That
we all did.
Who was with me, standing next to me that night in the press box? I'll tell you a funny story. Chris Russo was standing next to me that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. And then we went down the locker room, and they were passing the Stanley Cup around. They let the media guys drink out of it. True story. We got to drink out of the Stanley Cup. Glenn Anderson dumped a bottle of champagne on me that night on game 7. My clothes were reeking of champagne, but I didn't care. That was a tremendous night. And that whole experience, I went to practices that year, and, just being around the team, being around Messier and Leach and that whole gang, Brian Noonan and Mateau and Steve Larmer. I remember in regular season, Steve Larmer taking a penalty shot. He takes a slap shot before he skated in on the net against his old team, the Blackhawks. You remember some of the regular season games that year. That was a great experience. I never thought I'd get to see them win a Stanley Cup, and I was so happy that I was able to experience that. That was tremendous.
Howie,
it was funny how we. No, go ahead.
No, you go, and then I'll go.
I was going to say, Howie, a few months ago, at my great nephew's party, we got surprised from my nephew. His dad, he had gotten, the guy that dances when there's like 10 minutes left in the third period?
Dancing Larry.
At the guard? Yeah, Dancing Larry. Oh my God, it was hilarious, and he is so popular. My God, was that a whole bunch of fun? All of a sudden, I thought we're all gathered around. There's about 40 people in the backyard, and all of a sudden the music, when it comes dun 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 dun, like that, and we're saying what the? And all of a sudden this guy just comes out of nowhere and starts dancing. And it was like, it was just amazing. And
good thing you're outside.
Nice. Yeah. So
because,
nice. Yeah, and it's funny. He's a big Yankee
He used to say he had some problems with his hygiene.
With his hygiene, yes.
On the way home from games.
Yep.
Wow.
No, he had a great time, and
he's still there.
Yeah. We just had him a few months ago.
He goes to the games. Yeah.
Yeah. He's still
They
there.
put him up on the scoreboard, 10 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game or something like that. And but he says, he's actually going to have him on the show one day, because it's so funny, it's so great. But the one thing I do miss, Howie, is the way the Garden was.
Yeah.
Well, when they won the championship, because it's just like Yankee Stadium. Come on, you know as well as I do the memories that we had in that Yankee Stadium. I could never ever replace.
I still, so fond of the old place. Every time I walk to the ballpark now, the new one, because the old one used to be on the left side. They have a field there now. I mean, this one doesn't have the ambiance of the old one, and you'll never replace that. Yeah, and they did a hatchet job on the Garden too. They used to have the different colored level seats, and now it just looks very bland. Every seat looks the same. You're never going to recapture that. I mean, that was a special time. I haven't even been to the Garden a whole lot in recent years because I'm not really working there anymore. But that was a special time. I mean, I covered the Knicks, I covered the Rangers. I used to go to almost every night. I'd be there like 5 nights a week. I saw Joe there a whole bunch of times. It's not the same. Things are not the same. Things change. But you got to adapt to the changes. When it's all said and done.
Yeah. Speaking of the Rangers,
I left right at the right time. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what did you say?
No. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, speaking of the Rangers, they're up 3-2 right now against the Lightning in the first period. I'll tell you some great stories actually. So here I live in New Jersey, in Woodbridge, New Jersey. We do a lot of events there. We had the '94 Rangers team come, like Mateau, and also Graves was there. Messi made an appearance, so I got to meet Mateau, Graves, and Messi at Woodbridge. We had them. I think it was last year. We had them at the half of the '94 team, not the full. Like some of them came. It was a great experience, and they share tons of stories there. And obviously winning the '94 Stanley Cup, and then also another Ranger story I have for you guys is I have 7 mentors in this business, and one of my 7 mentors is Lennon Marshall, a former New York Giant. He's one of my mentors, and he did a foundation event a couple months ago. And I will never forget this. I was at the event, and Sam Rosen was there. So I had the opportunity to meet Sam Rosen, obviously the Rangers legendary announcer. And
Sam's a friend.
Oh yeah. I saw a picture of you with him, and Sam. I spoke with Sam at that event for 10 minutes, and we chopped it up. And great guy, and he's nice to talk to. Talked about some of his career moments, his journey, and what a great guy to connect with. And I'll tell you another story. We did an event with Mike Keenan last month, the Rangers coach, and I had to pick him up from the airport at LaGuardia Airport for the event. And he landed at 2:30 in the afternoon. I picked him up at 2:30. We didn't get to the hotel until 7:15 that same day. Everything was backed up, and the traffic, and obviously everybody knows the traffic in New York is backed up. But we had a great conversation for the 5-hour drive, and obviously he told stories about the '94 team. What was it like coaching Mark Messier and the rest of the players? And he was another great guy to work with. And that Ranger team, especially for you, Howie, it must have been special for you to cover that. And for me, I'm 30 years old, but for me to be able to connect with Mike Keenan, Messi, Graves, Mateau, and Sam Rosen, it felt extra special to me. Even though I didn't get to watch the '94 team, but for you, I want to bring up how special was that for you just to cover that team, because and also to be part of it too, basically.
Yeah, well. Oh, very special. Adam Graves is one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. It's funny you mentioned Leonard Marshall. I covered the Giants in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
I actually went to Super Bowl 21 for Sports Phone. And there's a picture of me with Lawrence Taylor that made every newspaper in the country, because that was at Media Day. Taylor boycotted the media that year. He ended up winning the NFL MVP, one of the few defensive players ever win it. And then he had to speak at Media Day or they were going to fine him a lot of money. The NFL, they threatened to, pick his pocket, pick his wallet, so to speak. So the Media Day was at this high school in California. I'm not sure. It wasn't Pasadena. It was more between Anaheim and Pasadena. The NFL headquarters was in Anaheim, but the game was at the Rose Bowl. So we actually took a bus, that 50-mile trip from Anaheim to Rose Bowl.
Wow.
But the Media Day was at this high school where they had a track and field. It was a football field, and it was done on the outside. And I saw Lawrence Taylor was going to be at this certain booth that they had set up. So I made sure to be there, because he was going to be the big story of the whole Media Day. And it just so happened that I'm standing right over him, holding my microphone out for some sound bites. And somebody took a picture of it. And that picture made every paper in the country the next day because of the story that he boycotted. And it actually ended up in a New York Giants 75th anniversary book. I actually have it on my phone. So I showed people, that's me. And, obviously I have hair there and I looked a lot different. But the Ranger season of 94 was tremendous. I'll tell you a funny story from 93. Before they missed the playoffs the year before they won the Stanley Cup. People forget they collapsed down the stretch, and that's why they ended up getting rid of Roger Nielsen and bringing in Mike Keenan. Keenan only did 1 year. He ended up winning the Cup. But in 93, there was a game against Edmonton where they were, pummeling the goaltender with shots. And Bill Ranford was the goalie. And I think the Rangers had something like 60 shots on goal, and they ended up losing the game. So I was a stringer that night for a Canadian broadcasting company, a radio station in Canada. They went to me every so often for those on-site reports for an update. So I was sitting next to a friend of mine, and I told him what I was going to say, about the goaltender. I told him, Bill, I'm going to say this on the air. I'm going to say Bill Ranford was the goalie, took more shots than Sonny at the toll booth. And
wow.
Brent says, no, you're not going to say it. I said, yes, I am. So I went on and I said it on the air. And then the host didn't come back on for maybe a minute because he was laughing too hard. That's what they told me. He said I couldn't come back on. I was just out of it laughing. Wow. I actually went on and said that on the air, and then that ended up in the sports phone book as one of the stories. But that was a fun time. I mean, it was a lot of. I used to go to the Ranger games when I was a kid, sit up in the blue seats, and when people were smoking marijuana in the corridors in between periods. You didn't have to smoke it. You got a contact high from all the smoke that was there. Then they cleaned that up finally in the 80s. But, I a lot of my friends had season passes, so I always end up with a ticket. So I went to a lot of games in the old days. I spent a lot of nights at the Garden. So, it was very special that year for me, extra special because of my history with the Rangers. I'm watching the Rangers since 1964. Saw a lot, I've seen a lot of games over the years. It's funny, I never played hockey. I played baseball and got scouted, but I never played hockey, never skated, ice hockey or anything. And it's my second favorite sport.
Wow. Yeah, I'll let Leonard and Lawrence know that I spoke with you today.
I don't know. I don't think they'll remember me.
Oh,
No, I didn't get to know them that well. You could say I was one of the radio reporters. That's about it.
Does Mike Keenan remember you?
No.
Oh no. Okay.
No, he wouldn't. Like I told you in the beginning, you had to establish your credibility.
Yeah.
It wasn't that easy when you were just a guy, who held a microphone and got post-game sound. You weren't around them a whole lot in those off hours where you make your relationships like I did in baseball.
You mentioned the 80s and all. There's one guy that sadly wasn't said too much on any of the shows yesterday, but ex-Nick Michael Ray Richardson passed away.
Yeah.
And there was no kudos at all for the guy. I mean, he was a very, very good player for the Knicks. Of course, he also went to the Nets. And I just felt that, some kudos should be going to Michael Ray. I have not really heard too much about it. There was like a bleep here and there. I know that, whatever happened in media and whatever, you still have to respect that he was a star. He was on the New York Knicks, and he should be remembered. And, I feel for the family. You still have, whatever happened. But the bottom line is he's still a human being. He's still an athlete, and he was a star. So I just wanted to mention Michael Ray Richardson. Rest in peace. And, thank you. Thank you for there were a lot of nice days at Madison Square Garden. It's when I first started hanging out there, going there, and little by little started working there. So it was a part of my past. And I just thought that he hasn't gotten the proper send off like everybody else.
Well, they gave him a moment of silence at both arenas last night, and they wrote about him in the Post today, honoring him. So yeah, if you look, there's stuff out there. I mean, he's remembered. He unfortunately had his own personal demons that he had to deal with, and that cost him his career, because he may have been on the way to the Hall of Fame.
Before we let you go, Howie, I know you're very busy. There's a couple of questions. One's from Bob Rizzo. Bob is asking if you had to tell Yankee fans, us Yankee fans right now, what's going to be do you feel is going to be under the Christmas tree? Player was.
You mean as far as free agents or trades or anything?
Yes. What do you feel?
Well, I think Cody Bellinger comes back. I think that has to be a priority. If Grisham doesn't, accept the qualifying offer, they may look to bring in a veteran center fielder. I don't know who's out there right now. Spencer Jones may get a shot, but I don't know if he's going to be the answer for them in center field. Mm-hmm. Judge's prime is running out. They're really under the gun here. They're going to get Cole back next year. Their starting pitching's pretty good. It sets up pretty good. They actually have surplus where they can maybe trade for somebody. I don't know offhand. I'm not sure of what you got to look for is the people who are free agents after next year who may be available. And I'm not talking about Tarek Skubal. He's not coming here. I don't think the Tigers are trading him right now.
Speaking of Skubal, he won the Cy Young just now.
Oh, he did? Okay. So thank you. Who won the National League? Is it Skeens?
Let me check. Hold on. I don't think they announced that yet.
Yeah, because it was an hour show. It was on 7:00. Oh, the NL may have went first.
Yeah, Skubal won back-to-back Cy Young. No, they haven't announced the National League yet.
I tell you, I'd like them to bring in, and that's Alex Bregman. Now you got to get over this Houston Astro cheating thing from 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. The guy's a winner.
Yeah.
He almost single-handedly helped the Red Sox knock off the Yankees in the wild card. I mean, how many times did he come up and get a hit? It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's a solid third baseman, excellent defensively, smart player. I know they got Ryan McMahon over there, but he's not going to hit. I'm sorry. I wish he would. I wish I could say he would hit. He would help Volpe at short because he would cut down. In fact, he has a little more range and everything. McMahon did a good job of that. He's good defensively, but Bregman's a little bit of more of an all-around player. Mm-hmm. I would have wanted them to go after him last year when they really had a hole at third. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be under the Christmas tree, so to speak, but I think you'll see Bellinger. I think you may see them. It's an outside shot. I don't know if they will do it. They may take a shot at Pete Alonso. They need a first baseman. I don't know if you can trust Ben Rice there on a full-time basis. He still has to prove he can hit left-hand pitching consistently. That's been a real bugaboo since Teixeira left. Mm-hmm. Rizzo saved Volpe a lot of errors the time he was here. Volpe still has to correct some things. I don't know if he's the answer at shortstop. So their infield's in kind of a flux. But, they have a good nucleus there right now to build around. I think Bellinger's the big prize. He has to come back. He sets everything else up. If they can get him in the fold, then they can work around that. And, they got some young arms in the minors who are really highly rated. I know they're prospects, and prospects are prospects, but they had 2 guys in the top 11 of Baseball America's top 100, 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
The kid, Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, and the other kid, Carlos Lagrange.
Mm-hmm.
They're high on Lagrange, just has a little bit of command trouble. I tell you, if one of these kids solidifies themselves, I would think about moving Luis Heel to the bullpen as a potential closer. If he could, master his command, he could be a dynamite guy to, pitch in the 9th inning. So they've got options there to move around. They have to build on their bullpen depth. Cody Bellinger's the big prize. You got to bring him back because he protects Judge in the lineup more so than even Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, Howie, I'll give you 3 names. Our other co-host, Sean, brought up Okamoto and the other Japanese pitcher. I forgot the name, but what about those 2? And also, do you see outside chance of Paul Skeens?
No way. Not right now. They have too many years of control. They'd be foolish to give up on him right now. I think if you're talking about a year from now, possibility. Right now, he's basically everything they've got for the fan base, and they have to see if they will improve. Are they going to go out and get players finally? They weren't terrible at times last year. They were kind of pesky. They gave teams problems.
Yeah.
They gave the Yankees a hard time when they played them. The Marlins, too, are in that situation. Look what the Marlins did to the Yankees. Basically, they cost them the division. They swept those 3 games, including the one they blew in the opener. So, these teams are still trying to find themselves. I don't see Skeens being traded yet. You talk to me in a year from now, possibility. I think the Tigers are going to hold on to Skubal. Mm-hmm. The Tigers at least have been in the playoffs the last 2 years. They trade Skubal. No matter what they get back, that's basically a setback to me. To me, they're going to take their chances, and if they're out of the playoff race, then maybe he gets traded at the deadline. So we'll see. I mean, these Japanese guys. And I see one of your viewers has Imai is the other guy.
Yeah.
I'm hearing teams are pretty high on. I don't want this Japanese infielder who's their power threat because he strikes out.
No. Murakami. Yeah.
I don't want to bring in another strikeout guy. Yeah. And they don't need another power guy right now. They need guys that make contact and move men around, move men on base and things like that. So, again, my answer is Bellinger's your guy. You bring him back, and then I think everything else will fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take Naylor?
I'm not high on Josh Naylor. I'm not. He's going to be asking a lot of money. I've never been that impressed with Naylor. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm very up in the air when it comes to Josh Naylor. I think Seattle, is going to be in the market for a first baseman as well. I don't know if it's going to be Naylor. I'm hearing Seattle, San Diego, and Boston could be suitors for Alonso.
Oh, wow.
So, especially San Diego, because San Diego was 3rd from the league, the bottom of the league in home runs last year. You wouldn't think so with some of the guys they got, but they had they had a lot of their bullpen was strong, but they didn't come back in games. They didn't have a lot of power to come from behind when they're down 2-3 runs in a game. Your bullpen can be negated in a lot of ways when you don't have the lead. That's why, when people say Mariano Rivera was the MVP of that run, you can make an argument there because without those other players getting him those leads, he comes in and maybe pitches a scoreless inning when they're behind and they lose. You basically can negate a closer. That's why in a lot of ways closers are a dime a dozen in baseball. You can find a closer, but if they don't pitch with the lead, it's almost like the usefulness is negated in a lot of ways. You still need the other factors to get them to that 9th inning with the lead. So there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of narratives in baseball that are kind of like, off the charts a little bit and really don't transcend themselves to winning in a lot of ways.
So, Howie, they just announced the National League. It's Paul Skeens, Cy Young.
Okay. Figured that.
Yeah. Kind of figured that.
Yeah, he had a great year.
Howie, with the and I know you're enormously busy, but with the winter meetings coming on, we're going to do a lot here. Actually, we're going to be on. We have a morning show, as you know, and we will stay on as long as possible. I was really hoping that, and I know that's a busy time for you, but if you could spare a little bit of time and come on, and we could talk about the Yanks and anything baseball winter meetings wise, we would really love that. If you could spare a few minutes throughout any day of the winter meetings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever you can do, we'd really appreciate it. I would love to have you on.
Well, it goes Monday to Thursday or Sunday to Thursday. So if you want to bring me on Wednesday or Thursday after some things have been consummated, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay in touch.
That's great.
I'll come on.
Anytime you want to jump on, I mean, I know you. I mean, you'd love to do. Maybe we could do something Rangers, whatever. Howie, you're like a brother. We would love to have you anytime you need to promote something. You want to promote something. We're here for you, big guy. We're always here. We'll always be here for you.
And I just want to say thank you, Joe, for letting me come on here. And Howie, it was really a pleasure to meet you and learn more about your story. And we will love to have you on our Job on the Mound show with Jabba Chamberlain one day eventually. And I'll reach out to you on Twitter to make that happen. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time. Your resume is unbelievable. 46 years in the sports industry, amazing. So keep it going. Keep up the great work. You're a legend. And like I said, you should be in the Hall of Fame. So
we'll get him there. That's for sure.
Maybe the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame. Some people have floated that idea already. So that would be a great honor, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's nice to meet you.
Before you go, tell us about the little cutie that's in your lives now, huh? Tell us about it.
3.
Oh, wow.
3.
Yeah. Wow. Well, my older boy, Danny, just had a girl in March. In fact, they came in today from Colorado. They're going to be in for a few days.
Oh, wow.
Her name is Zoe. She's 8 months old on the 1st. She was born March 1st. And then my other son lives in Chile, the country of Chile. He's got 2. Wow. He's got a girl, 2 years, 3 months. And we just had a grandson in June. He's going to be 5 months in about a week from now. So, yeah, we're blessed. We're very blessed with three wonderful grandchildren. And my 2 boys are big sports fans, too. In fact, I'll tell you one more story. The 2 of them got to be stringers for the Associated Press, where they would go down to the clubhouses and get quotes for the writer from certain games. So they got to experience being in a clubhouse with the Yankees and the Mets. And it was a thrill when I was scoring a game and they would be at the same game as me doing work on a professional basis. So that was one of the thrills of my scoring career when they were able to be at the same game that I was working and they would be working the clubhouses after the game. So that was a big thrill. And thanks for acknowledging them. And, Nathan, that's how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, so it's like Nathan, but Nathan. Yeah.
Nathan, it's great to meet you. And Joe has my number. I mean, if you want to get my number from Joe, you can get it from Joe, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Again, wonderful, wonderful holidays. If you get a nice, you know me, if you get a nice family portrait, I want to see it. Send me a nice picture. I know you have a lot of pictures. Don't forget me, but we will definitely be in touch. And thank you. And again, Howie, anything, whatever little we can do, we will definitely help you out in any which way. So thank you so much for being.
Well, definitely the winter meetings are in 3 weeks. So we'll set something up.
Definitely, Howie. Love to your family, your wife. God bless you all. And give a big hug from Uncle Joe.
All right, you guys. Great to meet you, Nathan.
Yeah, nice meeting you too. Thank you.
Take care. All right?
Have a great day. And let's go Yankees.
Let's go.
Take care.
Wow, what a treat.
Well, Howie Karpin, everyone. As I told everyone, you got to watch the video if you didn't watch us live, baby, because he's the man.
Wow.
As I kept telling everybody. Yeah, as I was telling everybody, he is Mr. Baseball. He's like the new Bob Uecker. He really is. And, thank you. Great questions, Nathan. You were awesome with him. And, guys, we got a gem here. And believe me, he'll give us a lot of good stuff in the winter meetings. That's why I asked him. As you could see, I asked him right in front of you. So you know what we do. And I don't stop. I don't stop. As a matter of fact, and Nitin is my witness, I'm already talking to some of the people that were on with us last night, and we're going to have a Christmas show.
Let's go.
So we're working on that too.
Yes.
And we're hopping, baby. If you have any ideas, you better tell us now. Remember, everyone, we're all getting together on Saturday night, Saturday early evening. Most of us that live in the metropolitan area, and we're laying out different shows, different ideas. So much going on. My head is splitting, but it's splitting in a wonderful way. And you guys were awesome. Thank you for the questions. I really appreciate that you kept it on the topics. Thank you. And that's it. We're going to be back to normal. But Friday, Nitin, can you tell everybody about the NBA show, which I just started plugging?
Yep. So it's Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing a live NBA pregame show for you guys on Friday. Obviously, we're going to give you guys a preview of the games and the upcoming games and the games that will happen on Friday. And then we'll talk about this week's games. Like for example, the Knicks won yesterday. They're playing tonight again too against the Magic. So we'll give you guys all the updates in the NBA season so far. Can't wait for that show at 5 p.m. with Chef Nick, myself, Evan, and Johnny Salami.
Yeah, that is definitely awesome. By the way, the Knicks are not faring too well right now. They're down 51-34 with 3 minutes left before halftime.
Rangers are up 4-2, right, I think.
Oh, okay. That's what I was going to. Rangers 4-3 at the end of one.
Wow,
that's a game right after we go off the air that you need to watch.
And then after this,
if you like scoring, you'll get it.
Guys, please tune into our Job on the Mouth show. We're live right now. I'm going to be going back, working the backstage after this. And we got my guy, Logan Morrison, joining at 8:45. So stay tuned for that. And also, like I said, we're going to keep you guys posted on the new date for the live show in New York. It's going to be expected to be at Carmine's now. So we'll keep you posted. And Joe.
Yes, sir.
Whenever you get a chance, send me his information. So
no problem.
Yeah.
Consider it done.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I want to thank everybody. You guys are awesome. So we will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then we have remember the football show, by the way, the actual time it's a special time this week, but the actual time, according to Evan and Nitin, is going to be Fridays at either 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. This
Friday, Evan has to do it at 5. So
yes, this one is 5, but don't get too comfortable for 5 o'clock. It will be a little bit later, but it will become steady, I promise. And then right after that, at 10 p.m., we have the Total Turnbuckle Talk Show, a simulcast on Total Turnbuckle Talk, NY Yankee Mania, and our special guest
Lou Edwards.
That show is former ring announcer WWF Lou Edwards.
Yeah.
Does he have stories for you? And I don't know if I'm going to get him to shut up. But one thing I can tell you is we had such a great time, and how I met them. They invited me to their radio show, but you'll hear all about that. So tune in, go to Total Turnbuckle Talk. Look at my partner TJ's shorts. Yep. I guarantee you'll fall in love with them. He's got links that are 5,000 views, 6,000 views, 3,000 views. Yeah. He's a young, up-and-coming superstar. I got to tell you.
Yeah, do it. So this Friday, right, 10 p.m.
Friday at 10 p.m. Yes.
I had the opportunity to meet TJ Thanks to Joe for inviting me to the house, and I met TJ, the rest of the family, amazing family. Shout out to Joe. Yep, and because his little niece is so cute, and it was his birthday, so and for me to meet the family was great, and also TJ's a star in the making. Go follow Turnbuckle Talk, man. This guy, he knows his wrestling. I can see him working in the WWE.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely. And kudos to Nitin and his family because they did a great job bringing up this gentleman right here, who's very, very respectful. And one thing I could tell you, everyone, if you're a friend of Nitin's, when you get up in the morning, you know the first thing he says? Good morning, how are you? And how's your family? How many people do that? How many people do that?
Yep.
You know, I'll say, how are you and everything like that, but it's like, I got to have my coffee. This man will do that. And, you know, how good that is to wake up to something like that, guys. When you have something, you've got to embrace it, guys. It could be anything. I don't care if it's your lunch. If you love it, live it, learn it, and use it because you're going to need it. You need it in life. Mm-hmm. And again, I wasn't on this morning, but I want to thank Nitin and Evan and everybody that was on the Chef Nick last night. This show was dedicated to Johnny Salami, his story about his parents. Plus, he gave a very, very big super chat last night to the show dedicated. So that's why from our love to you, Johnny, this show is dedicated to you. We'll have another new dedication tomorrow morning. But thank you, everyone, for being here. Nitin, some final thoughts before we go catch some games and watch if there's any breaking news.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on with Howie. It was great learning about him, and even more, and looking forward to connecting with him even more. And we're going to try and bring him on the Jabba and the Mouse show, and we would love to have him talk to Jabba, obviously. And yeah, thank you. And great show today. Let's go Yankees. Let's go Rangers. Let's go Knicks. More things to come. My team and I are still booking guests for Joe's show, so stay tuned for that. And please tune into our Jabba the Mouse show, which is live right now. So.
Yep. You go to it now, everybody. I am. So let's go say hello. Let's go give Jabba some love and his co-host and everybody. And we will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Evan, Sean, Nitin, and hopefully myself. Yep. We will all be on to give you the latest Yankee news. Thank you, Howie. God bless you and your family and the three little cuties that are now gracing your family. So that's right. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. So we'll see you tomorrow morning, everyone. Good night. God bless you all. God bless America. Let's go Yankees. Good night, Nitin.